Hare Krishna, Namaste.
Chapter 13 is entitled as Kshetrajna Yoga, also as Prakriti Purusha Vibhaga Yoga, also as Prakriti Purusha Viveka Yoga. Sloka 23, Part 2. Upadraṣṭānumantā ca bhartā bhoktā maheśvaraḥ paramātmeti cāpy ukto dehe smin puruṣaḥ paraḥ. In the part 1 of the sloka, we learnt beside the Jivatma, there's another Atma who is situated within the Jivatma. And that Atma is none other than the Supreme Lord as Antaryami. And that Supreme Lord who is situated in the body where the Jivatma is situated is upadraṣṭā, overseer, Anumantā, who permits the action of the Jivatma, bhartā, one who sustains, bhoktā, who is the enjoyer, maheśvaraḥ, supreme controller, and paramātmeti, the Supersoul. Most of them who commented on this sloka, they interpreted this in reference to the Absolute Truth, the Supreme Lord, to be upadraṣṭānumantā, bhartā, bhoktā, maheśvaraḥ, and paramātmeti. Whereas Sripad Ramanujacharya in his commentary has given a very interesting interpretation that this refers to the living entity, Jivatma, like how he did for verses 14 through 18. It is quite informative and educational to know how these are also applicable to Jivatma. But as we hear this, we must understand that these things are applicable for the living entity only within that body, not beyond that body. Whereas when we apply the same thing to the Supreme Lord, He is not limited within the body of one Jivatma, but being upadraṣṭānumantā, bhartā, bhoktā, maheśvaraḥ, paramātmeti applies to all the bodies, all the living entities. That's where the difference is. Now let's see how these also applies for the Jivatma. The Jivatma who is seated in a body becomes an observer of the body. He induces the functioning body to further action. It is the Jivatma who is sitting within the body, be observer of the activities of the body, and he is the one who induces the functioning body to further action. And he supports it, meaning if he is not present within the body cannot withstand. So he supports the body, and also he is the one who experiences the happiness and sorrow that are arising from the actions of the body. And the same living entity, Jivatma, is the ruler, maheśvaraḥ, of that body, and the Lord, paramātmeti, of that body. So in the sloka, we can see the terms smin dehe, dehe as smin, meaning in this body. So it is about each and every individual body and respective Atma who is present within that body, the Jivatma. He is paraḥ, puruṣaḥ. He is the master. The Atma is the master of that current body. And he is, the Jivatma, is the controller of its body. Maheśvaraḥ. When we say its body, the Indriyas also included. Upadraṣṭā. And he is, while situated in the body, he is the observer, he is the overseer of the body's activity. And he is Anumantā, who sanctions the action of the body, current body, where he is situated. He is bhartā because if he is not there, the body cannot be sustained. The body becomes a dead body, cannot function by itself. Therefore, he is bhartā. And he is bhoktā. Why? Because he is the enjoyer of the results of the action that been approved by him and performed by the body. Upadraṣṭā. So this term can be split into two. Drishṭā means to know a thing through some pramāna, through some proof, witness. Upadraṣṭā means not doing things oneself, but becoming the observer or overseer of what is being done by something else or someone else. That is called upadraṣṭā. It's like sitting as an audience and watching a game or something, some activity. That person is called as upadraṣṭā. He is not doing anything, but someone else is doing. He is just watching that. That person is called as upadraṣṭā, which means the activities are done by the body, and the living entity who is situated within this body just becomes an observer, overseer of the activities that is being performed by the body. He does nothing. He doesn't do the action, but just watches the action of the body. He thinks or desires to do some action. That thought or desire to do some activity is then performed by the body. When the body does, the Jivatma just watches, oversees. Therefore, he is upadraṣṭā. Now, he not only watches, is not only upadraṣṭā, oversees, but also those actions which are being performed are being approved by him. So the body can perform that action. That means he is Anumantā. He approves of the activity initiated by the body. We can experience that when we are tired, sleepy, thirsty, etc., we give in to the needs of the body. It is also obvious that we give our approval to activities that others may initiate. Therefore, he is Anumantā. Bhartā, one who supports, carries. It is this living entity, it is the Jivatma who carries the body. We usually have a different idea. We think that which is big carries the smaller one. A bus carries the passengers. The house carries the resident. Therefore, we may apply the same principle thinking that the body carries the Jivatma. But that is completely wrong. It is the Jivatma which carries the body. That which is subtler is more greater than the gross. That which is subtler is more powerful than the gross. Therefore, it is the Jivatma which carries the body. Therefore, the Jivatma is called bhartā, who carries his body. How do we know this? Well, when the living entity leaves the body can not stand straight. It falls down. So who's been carrying all these days is the Jivatma. Therefore, he is bhartā of his body. Not only that, he is also bhoktā. Bhoktā means one who is an enjoyer. So he is the enjoyer of his body, which produces pleasures and pains. The activities that the body performs produces some result, and those results are experienced by the Jivatma who is living within that body. Therefore, he is bhoktā. Since he is upadraṣṭā of his body, anumantā of his body, bhartā of his body, bhoktā of his body, he is the controller of his body and senses. Therefore, he is Ishvara. This is also confirmed or will be confirmed later in the 15th chapter, 8th sloka. Shariram yadavapnoti cāpy utkramatishvaraḥ grihitvaitani samyati vayurgandhan ivasayat. The living entity in the material world carries its different conception of life from one body to another, as the air carries aromas. Thus, it takes one kind of body and again quits it to take another. So he takes these senses with him as a traveler takes things as he is getting ready to travel to a different place. Therefore, he is Ishvara, as it is said by Krishna himself in Bhagavad Gita. But is limited to his own body and senses. But still, he is Ishvara of his body currently that he possesses and the senses. And lastly, the Jivatma is also referred as Paramatma of the current body. The Supreme Lord is called as Paramatma because he is everywhere, whereas the living entity is called Paramatma because he is everywhere within that body through his consciousness. So the Lord pervades through himself, that is called Swarupa Vyapi, whereas the Jivatma pervades everywhere through jnana, through his knowledge, his consciousness, called jnana Vyapi. Let's understand this more in detail. Unless there is an Atma, one cannot say Paramatma, as Paramatma is situated within Jivatma. Therefore, Atma must exist, and within Atma, Paramatma exists. But if we have to say Jivatma as Paramatma, then there should be something which exists and the Jivatma must be present within that. That's when we can call Jivatma as Paramatma. What is that in this case? Meaning, there must be an Atma, and within that Atma, the living entity has to live, be situated. Only then one can call the living entity as Paramatma. As per the dictionary, the term Atma also refers to body, also refers to the senses, also applies to mind. And we have learned that the Jivatma, the living entity, the individual self, is superior to the body, mind and senses, which are referred as Atma. Therefore, considering body, mind and senses as Atma, and one who lives within that is Paramatma. In this context, it is the living entity. In that sense, the living entity is referred as Paramatma of that body, mind and senses, not for some other body, mind and senses. That is only possible by the Supreme Lord, not by an individual Atma. To summarize, the living entity in this body is overseer, upadraṣṭā. The living entity in this body is permitter, anumantā. The living entity in this body is sustainer, bhartā. The living entity in this body is the enjoyer, bhoktā. The living entity in this body is the Supreme Lord, maheśvaraḥ. The living entity in this body is superior than the body, mind and senses. Therefore, he is Paramatma. That concludes this prakaranam, this subject on the connection between Atma and Prakriti, which is beginningless. Because of the beginningless connection, we learned the effect and the cause for the Atma to be associated with the body, with the Prakriti. Now, starting next sloka, we are going to enter into a different topic, but Krishna is going to give an introduction by stating the benefit of knowing these subject matter, the tattvas, the three entities, puruṣaḥ, prakriti and the three modes, sattva, rajas and tamas. Upadraṣṭānumantā ca bhartā bhoktā maheśvaraḥ paramātmeti cāpy dehe smin puruṣaḥ paraḥ.
Namaste. Hare Krishna.